Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up, is this the end of the Me Too movement? Anger over an American jury decision which found Amber Heard defamed ex-husband Johnny Depp with an article in which she claimed she was a victim of domestic abuse. And it may have been a slow start here in France, but the Me Too movement is beginning to have an impact in a variety of sectors, including the world of media and politics. Also with me in the studio to talk about these stories is French-Canadian feminist and creator of Les Glorieuses newsletter, Rebecca Amsellem. But first, and it was a court trial that captured headlines across the globe, causing a social media meltdown. Hollywood actor Johnny Depp versus his much younger ex-wife Amber Heard. Depp accusing Heard of defaming him when she wrote she was a domestic violence survivor in a newspaper opinion piece, but in the end, a court in Virginia finding in favour of the actor, awarding him some $10 million in damages. Heard winning just one of three counterclaims and was awarded $2 million in damages. The surprising verdict has sparked outrage among women's activists, with some saying the decision spells the end of the Me Too movement.
The end of a 6-week defamation trial that exposed sordid details of a toxic Hollywood marriage.
Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes.
The jury backed all three of Johnny Depp's claims against his ex-wife, finding Amber Heard had defamed him when she wrote that she was a public figure of domestic abuse. They upheld one of Heard's counterclaims. The case has been damaging for both parties, particularly Heard, who faced waves of vitriol and accusations of lying on social media. And it won't stop with her, according to women's rights activists who denounce a misogynist backlash.
It will have a devastating effect on survivors who will be silenced now with the knowledge that they cannot speak about their violent experiences at men's hands without the threat of a ruinous libel suit.
Certainly for victims and survivors, it definitely has a chilling effect, which is if this can happen to someone of that stature, what could happen to me? I think there's a lot of concern that we've turned back the clock big time, particularly with the outcome of this trial.
In another case that's sure to create a social media tsunami, shock rocker Marilyn Manson has filed a defamation suit against his ex-fiancée Evan Rachel Wood, one of several women who've accused him of sexual violence.
And joining me today is French-Canadian feminist and creator of the Les Glorieuses newsletter, Rebecca Amsalam. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming in. This verdict has shocked many, not just in the US, but right across the world. So do you think it spells the end of the Me Too movement?
Honestly, I don't. I think it's not even a step back in the movement, because I think it's the story of a man, a white man, an American white man, very rich, very powerful, very famous, who decided to use all his money, all his time to have very expensive attorneys, expensive PRs, and to turn the public opinion against his ex-wife. And this is actually the state of the world. We do live in a patriarchy where men can actually do this.
Clearly, Rebecca, though, what we're witnessing is sort of defamation lawsuits being used by men as weapons to effectively silence women. I mean, even here in France, that's been the case. We've had the situation recently where two prominent men in this country were who basically launched defamation cases against the women who had accused them. Having said that, they lost. So is the courtroom now becoming the battlefield for Me Too?
Absolutely. I think that at the very beginning of the Me Too movement that started in the US, there was this French journalist who decided to do the same thing with Balance ton porc, which can be translated by, denounce your pig. And she told a story that happened to her. She named the person, and this person attacked her in defamation. And the first thing that at first he actually won. She had to pay him 15,000 euros in defamation. And then in appeal, she won because, the time changed and people understood that it was not a defamation. people actually believed her story. And I do think that very powerful people are using this defamation tool because they know that it's the only thing that they have the money to have very powerful attorneys to go into court and to claim their cases. And what's interesting here is that they say that the social media cannot be the place of trial. And the feminists actually agree with that. We do want a justice system that is better as protecting women.
Let's just pause there for a moment, Rebecca, because here in France, the Me Too movement has been slow to take off compared to other parts of the world. But as we've just been hearing, that does appear to be changing as an ever-growing group of prominent men in the media and politics now face a series of accusations.
They're allegations that have given new fuel to the Me Too movement in France. A day after Damien Abad was appointed Minister for Disabilities and Social Welfare, it emerged that 2 women accuse him of raping them just over a decade ago. One had her case dismissed, the other didn't file a complaint at the time, and recent calls to investigate have been rejected by Paris prosecutors. Abad denies the claims, saying his joint and muscle condition makes them physically impossible. The government denies knowing about the accusations beforehand and has stood by him.
La justice.
The justice system is the only body that can and must decide.
For feminist groups, it's the latest proof that the government isn't living up to its commitment to fighting violence against women, one of Emmanuel Macron's stated priorities. Many were already angered by the appointments of Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin, accused of rape in a case ultimately dropped by prosecutors, and Justice Minister Éric Dupond-Moretti, who they say sympathizes with perpetrators. France's Me Too movement has also resurged in the world of media. Last year, over a dozen women came forward with allegations, including of rape, against television presenter Patrick Poivre d'Arvor, often referred to by his initials PPDA. After he filed a complaint against some of them for slander, 20 women recently told their stories again in a special on website Mediapart to show they will not be silenced.
And with me in the studio is French-Canadian feminist and creator of Les Glorieuses newsletter, Rebecca Amsellem. Rebecca, is it the case that finally France is playing catch-up?
What's interesting is that France has been lagging behind since the very beginning of the Me Too movement, but we had some moments. At first with Balance ton port, lots of people started to talk, especially women, and they talked about the things that were not okay anymore. And then a couple of years ago, we had the Me Too incest with Charlotte Pudlowski podcast and Camille Kouchner book, and they actually raised and created a movement here in France. And now we do have the Me Too media talking about the very powerful men and their misbehavior and what happened sometimes a very long time ago. I think those things take time, and it takes time to talk. You need to be in some economic condition and social condition to be able to talk about those things. And this is why it's happening now, because now the women feel safe to talk, and this must continue.
Is it a case also of a generational shift, and as a result, the country is changing and it is different now in 2022 to where it was back in 2017 when the Me Too movement first emerged?
It's true that this new generation that is marching in the streets is more radical, more aware of the climate change and feminist issues. But the people who are talking and the people who are changing the institutions are older women, because they are the leader right now of those institutions. So we need also to thank them.
Rebecca, yet one of the new ministers in the Macron government, Damien Abad, the new Minister for Social Services, is himself also facing Me Too allegations, claims that he raped 2 women more than a decade ago, accusations that he has denied. But it's, we've seen that women's groups are now calling for protests as a result of that.
2 women said that they accused him of rape, which is a serious allegation. And what's interesting is that the government actually knew, the president knew, the prime minister knew of those allegations before appointing him and still decided to appoint him. So feminist organizations are now protesting all over the country to make sure this minister steps down, because it's not possible to work with a government in which they appoint one and 2 actually member of government who face sexual misconduct.
A sign that maybe they're not catching up as quickly as they should?
I don't think so, yes. I think that we have a president who claims to be a very feminist president, but when we look at what he actually does, sometimes seems that he forgets about it.
Rebecca, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's all for now. You can keep up with the 51% on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter. Plus, you can catch our previous programs on the France 24 website. So until our next show, bye for now.